Hi, we're here after the Oxbridge Biotech Roundtable debate on the recent FDA regulation of the personal genomics company 23andMe, and it's my pleasure to sit here with Paul Billings and Glenda Anderson following the debate, and I just wanted to ask you both a few questions. I think the debate was very high-spirited and extremely educational, and I think several great points came out of the arguments that were made, but one of which I think really relates to, can we trust consumers with their own genetic information to make informed decisions, or is the FDA's position of being precautious valid?
I guess my response here is I'd like to draw a distinction between what I'd call a recreational use and a clinical use. To the extent that we're trusting consumers to evaluate recreational genomics, looking at their sequence data, and drawing some inferences from peer-reviewed literature, I think we can be pretty comfortable that even if they're confused, they'll talk to friends or family and sort things out for themselves. The minute we venture into a diagnostic subtext where the results of this investigation require some action on their part, to some extent we can count on them to go to their doctor and get input or feedback, but we really need to be more certain that that data is well supported by the evidence that has been validated.
So I would say that the current evidence suggests that there's no harm by providing it directly to consumers, consumer-initiated. And in addition, the overwhelming issue is that who has the most skin in the game? Who has the most to benefit or lose if that information, the interaction, the action taken is wrong? It's the patient. So at the very least, the patient should have access to their information. And yes, of course, most of them, in fact, that's what happens. Most people do take it to their doctor. If you looked at Uta Franca's study of 23andMe BRCA testes, all the women went to the doctor, got the test confirmed, had the right treatment decision. I assume most of the men did too, even though their risk was probably actually less, in the sense that their prostate cancer risk or their breast cancer risk is less overall than the women who have the BRCA mutation. But I just think that in any way interfering with the person who's most to benefit from having access to whatever information they want about their biological state or genomes, I think that that's dangerous. I think it's really dangerous.
Now, it is fair to say that that the patient who's looking at this evidence does need to have some confidence in the quality of that data.
Of course.
Now, I'm not just talking raw accuracy or precision in the measurement itself, but in the interpretation. I mean, to the extent that the 23andMe report, for example, identifies 5 SNPs, each of which contribute in either a positive or negative way, and then somehow sums them together, although the studies were conducted independently, there are some leaps even in the science here.
In every algorithm.
That I don't know that even an informed consumer could really interpret it.
But I would say that in any medical situation, there are algorithms either going on in a physician's head or in a computer, or maybe increasing a little in the computer and a little in the physician's head. And take a look at cancer treatment in the United States. I mean, you go to Memorial Sloan Kettering or MD Anderson or other tertiary cancer center, you get one kind of approach and one kind of set of treatments. You go to a community oncologist, you may get an entirely different kind. And same patient, same disease. So the amount of variance in the system currently is quite dramatic. And I think, I agree that, some basic things about how good the information is or what the algorithm is based on, yes, of course that has to be transparent. But after that, it's until there's definitive information, it's a crapshoot. And I think that patients should participate in their own crapshoots.
Yeah. No, I guess we probably are likely to agree that looking at the question through the lens of risk-based assessment is probably a reasonable approach.
Absolutely.
I mean, where the risk of misinterpretation is great, then a higher authority should be reviewing the data. And quite frankly, that's exactly what the FDA does. When the risk exceeds a certain threshold, then they require higher level.
Well, I actually think that's a stated rubric, and that's how they claim that they're going to regulate all LDTs using that kind of risk model. But as I pointed out during the debate, Foundation Medicine on genomic health, Myriad has been delivering very crucial risk for seriously ill patients for a long time. FDA hasn't done anything.
It's interesting you pointed that out. I think it's fair to say that Genomic Health has had conversations with the FDA that are quite extensive.
I know they have.
And in fact, they've been asked to produce data. And I think in the privacy of a pre-IDE meeting, there's probably been a lot of data exchange.
Absolutely, but no,
and similarly
no
with
shutting
Foundation
them down.
Medicine. Right, and I think that speaks to the quality of the dialogue they're maintaining with the FDA outside of our view.
I would not at all say that 23andMe did a good job of managing their FDA relationship. Right. And they clearly pissed off Alberto Gutierrez, clearly pissed him off, because they were expanding their marketing, they were making broader claims, expanding their menu. He states that all very clearly. But should that result in a public warning letter that shuts them down? I don't think so.
One might ask what alternative is available.
An angry phone call.
Yes.
Great, really fantastic points.
Yeah.
I think that actually leads me to another question I had, which is that it seems like improving the situation will really require improving basically the science and what we can do with this genetic information to inform clinical decisions. And I think it was mentioned by several of the debaters today that we just need more data, and we need more buy-in from consumers and more participation. And then we can continue to practice medicine along the way, but in the meanwhile, let's try to figure out what this all means together. Yeah. And so my question is, how can we get consumers to participate, in some cases to donate their information for the purpose of research? And how can we get academics, the government, industry, the lay public, all to participate together? Do you have any ideas for that?
I think we're seeing some of that already.
Yeah.
I mean, as we mentioned earlier, ASCO's Cancer Link program that closes the loop really is attempting to pull together data from tumors, universally. That follows on the tail of the 10,000 tumor program, the Cancer Genome Atlas program, which has assembled massive amounts of data relative to what we had just a handful of years ago. We can see the organizations that are ACM, the American College of Medical Genetics, has a role to play in some of the early diagnosis of intellectual disability. And again, that's assembling large quantities of data in an effort to identify genomic aberrations which are pathogenic. The challenge here is, even with large sets of data, looking for singleton markers of disease is probably a flawed strategy. I mean, as we know, it's likely that multiple factors contribute to the onset of a disease. So I think we've got a little bit of a multiplexing problem here.
So there are, I would just say about that, there are common variants that cause certain kinds of diseases. There are very rare or private variants that in combinatorial background reasons promote or retard a phenotype. And we're just going to have to collect enough data and personalize that data, sometimes to n's of one, that to make that into medical action, make that into a treatment plan or a disease management plan. But what I would say to your point about how do we change, one of the things that I'm heartened by is patient-initiated models of research. People are suggesting on blogs or Patients Like Me new studies that ought to be done, and they're also microfinancing those studies, as a matter of fact. And those models of generating research topics are bottom up, and they're not based on kind of experts' often flawed interpretation of what's what's the best hypothesis out there. It's based on patient experience. So I think that's one thing that's very good. Second thing that's very good is that we are seeing niches where advanced technologies, advanced measurement technologies like sequencing, actually are making a very important clinical contribution. The CTO of my former company of Life Technologies, his children were saved by whole genome testing. Both of them, twins, were saved because they were dying of an unknown illness, and their genomes were sequenced, and they found a treatable illness in there. I think the third thing is that we need a public campaign about the benefits of communitarianism and of the benefits of research, and that, as I have said in a number of talks, research medicine is the best medicine. So, I really think that we need to change the view of, which dates back, by the way, to the Nuremberg experience after World War II, that research is bad and people are victimized, and we need the common rule and all sorts of other protections to protect us in research. Well, most of research is actually to our benefit and benign.
Well, it's particularly exciting to see how this technology can basically democratize research and science.
Yeah,
and
everyone
get
has something to
participation.
contribute. That's right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Paul Billings, Glenda Anderson.
Thank you.
My name is Ben Cohn. I'm here after the Oxbridge Biotech Roundtable debate on the FDA's regulation of 23andMe. Good evening. Thank you.
That was fun.